Mark, absolute pleasure to have you with me today. Obviously, I've been watching I've known you for many, many years now, saw how you kind of transformed Gymbox with your old colleagues, Richard and David, and obviously most recently have left to take on the mantle at Fitness First, one of the OGs of the UK fitness industry. So it'd be just good. I know that you started off as a personal trainer. You've been involved in multiple businesses throughout your fitness and career. It'd be good to understand a bit about where you've come from and how you've got to where you are, and what you feel from a mindset point of view has helped you achieve, everything that you have done so far.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on, first of all, Dan. Yeah, so I started my career as a personal trainer and sports massage therapist. 1998, I think I qualified, which shows my age, unfortunately. But I went on to work for LA Fitness. So LA Fitness back then were probably the sort of original, I wouldn't say budget, we were kind of mid-market really, but an original budget straight mid-market operator alongside Fitness First, ironically, back then. Worked there for several years as a PT, fitness instructor, fitness manager, taught classes, and effectively worked my way through the business up to a regional manager role. And then in 2009, I kind of lost a bit of love for the business. Didn't really agree the way it was going. Dressing up as a Christmas turkey on the street, handing out leaflets at Christmas wasn't my thing anymore at that age. So I decided to start my own consultancy business. I took all the great things that LA Fitness did, and to be fair, it was a brilliant journey, learning journey. Fred Turek, who was the sort of founder, CEO at the time, was very, very good to work for. Very direct, very commercial in his thinking, and I worked there through three CEOs. So Fred Turek, Stuart Broster, and then Martin Long, all very, very different in their approach. So I left there in 2009, started my own consultancy business, and took all the good things I learned from LA Fitness, and then added a few more of my own sort of views on sort of marketing, sales, or running into businesses to troubleshoot them. So that took me, on a journey into consultancy. Very early on in that journey, I was offered a conversation with Richard Hilton, David Cooper, who were looking for a sales and marketing director at Gymbox at the time. And I had no inkling to go into another employed role, but I did consultancy work for them for about a year, actually. So I consulted them for a year, put in all the sales systems, processes, training, marketing, etc. And then Richard offered me the opportunity to come on board as a sales and marketing director with equity in the business. And my dream back then, really, with the consultancy, my dream really was to open my own gym. That's what I wanted to do. So this was as good as doing that for a brand that I really respected and a brand that I was a fan of, if I'm being honest. So, it changed my mindset in terms of, actually, I don't need to go and do this myself, because I'm going to go into a brand I'm a fan of, good people, good culture, very, very small at the time, 3 sites with, cash investors looking to grow. And that's kind of the journey from there.
Am I right in thinking Fitness First were an investor in Gymbox originally?
They were, yes. Yeah. So it's a great story, actually. Richard may have told you at some stage, but Richard had this concept for Gymbox, and Richard worked in advertising here. So he was based in New York, moved back to the UK, and Crunch in New York at the time was very, very different. Not quite what it is nowadays. Very edgy, and things, they might have, very, very quirky people teaching classes. You might be taught by boxing by somebody like a drag queen, for example. Richard used the example of. So it was very, very out there. And his idea was that fitness in the UK was very boring, wooden floors, white walls, very sterile. So he had this concept. Anyway, he'd written a concept out, couldn't get investment for it, threw a party at his house at the time. And he had this business plan sat on the side. And a guy picked up and said, "What's this?" And he said, "Oh, it's just an idea I've got." And the guy then put Richard in touch with Mike Balfour, who was the owner of Fitness First, founder of Fitness First, and the rest is history. So that's how that came about originally.
Really?
Actually,
That's
investment.
insane, isn't it?
Crazy. Very, very, very good.
Couldn't
good
happen
timing.
now, because your business plan would be on an email. It wouldn't be printed out lying around.
And it was just drawn. It was just drawn out, I think. It's just
Really?
on, a few boxing rings, a bit. Yeah, it's very, very different. So he got very lucky there actually. But Fitness First was the original investor, and then we bought them out after a few years actually, and then obviously grew the business. So I was there from 2010 to 2024 when we sold the business and exited. Took some time out with the family, which was fantastic. But I think I lasted about a day before I was on a phone call, to be honest. So my wife, she just couldn't quite believe it actually. I was,
Trying to
one
get
day
rid
and
of you, probably.
exactly. So yeah, took some time out, and then I received a call from Scott. So I was doing a bit of consultancy work in London. I received a call from Scott, who wanted a conversation about what my plans were. Met up, had a few beers, and agreed a deal there and then, really, about coming on board with the business. So here I am in 2026 at Fitness First.
Insane journey. So, I mean, over that time, I mean, who you mentioned a few people early on, like Fred Turok in LA Fitness. Did you have like a mentor, or were you just kind of absorbing from the people that are around you? Has there anybody, that then and maybe even now continues to kind of influence you or inspires you, or that you feel that you've really kind of gave you that kind of mindset that has allowed you to become, a CEO for some of the most prestigious gym chains in the UK?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I wouldn't say specific mentors. I haven't been through schemes and spent time or anything else, but I've learned a lot from a lot of good people. So I'd probably start with my own family actually. My mum and dad actually ran a business, and that turned into a fairly big business. It was a group of companies, and it's founded by my granddad originally actually. So they had a fairly big business, and they went on to buy, you might have heard of BSA, the motorbike company, gun company.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they went on to buy BSA about 25
Wow.
years ago. And they just saw a gap there where they could use this very legacy UK brand to add value to their business. They started building the bikes again, and they sold that business in 2020. But yeah, so I had my parents as mentors. I think, my dad from a very, very early age was very, very hardworking. We wouldn't see him, he'd be gone before we got to school. He'd get back very, very late at night. And I kind of grew up around that. Actually, that was normal for me. I've definitely taken that into my own career. So I think, hard work has come as a given for me because it's what I learned. And then there's other people that influence it. Fred Turek, for one, for sure. Fred was very, very commercial in his thinking. I had an experience with Fred very early on in my career as operations manager in Southampton. He came into the club. The club was absolutely spotless. He managed to find one bit of dust, gave me a very, very hard time over it, and asked me what I was like at sales, because actually for Fred, commercials were everything really. And I said, yeah, I'm good. And he said, well, okay, well, look, time will tell. And years later, we went on to win the Flame Awards with the club I was running in Fareham, and he remembered it. And he was very good from a commercial perspective. I worked with a guy called Ben Silcott, who was the sales director at LA Fitness at the time. Again, Ben was very calm, knew his stuff, very data driven, which I am as well. But so I learned a lot from Ben. Spent a bit of time with Ben. A guy called Norris Pampton, who's been in the industry for a long, long time. I probably meet him more than anyone outside of work. We share a beer, we share dinner, we talk, and he's very, very wise, Norris. The calmest person I'll ever meet, never feels phased, never feels stressed. And he's had a lot of value as well. And then obviously Richard Hilton at Gymbox, who probably gave me my, branding kind of ethos. I always worked in sales and marketing already, but actually Richard was another level in terms of brand touch points. So yeah, I learned a lot from Richard across that sort of 15 years as well.
Amazing. So lots of people influencing you, and like you said, I think the childhood thing definitely resonates. So in terms of whilst you're at Gymbox, obviously you had to steer it through the pandemic. What was that like? And do you feel that that sharpened you commercially, or do you think, or did it nearly break you, or did it do both?
Probably a bit of both, actually, Dan. I mean, it was horrendous, right? It's horrendous for everyone. And I always say, we weren't all in the same boat, right? Because, Gymbox versus a pure gym or a gym group, the levels of, investment, levels of cash to back you up is very, very different. But I said we're all in the same storm, right? So at the time, we're all going through it in some way. I think UK Active were really great during that time. They put on a weekly call and all the CEOs, MDs jumped on that call to figure our way through this, which I think was fantastic. It felt like the industry really pulled together more than I've ever seen it do, which was great. But then, I had to think culture first because, I've always been a culture first leader. And I know we closed our clubs two days before the government closed gyms. Because it just didn't feel right at the time. Look, had I
Yeah.
known what I know now, maybe I made different decisions. But at the time, it didn't feel quite right. The usage had dropped right off. Staff were kind of off sick, etc. So we closed a couple of days early, which I think we got a lot of goodwill from our team for doing that. And then a case after that, it was just like, many businesses around made redundancies very, very quickly. I don't know if you remember the time, but and you
Mm.
can't blame businesses for doing it. I didn't, and I said to our board, look, I'm not doing that. We need to see what's going to happen here. The government aren't going to close us and not have a backup plan. And fortunately, quite quickly after that, furloughs introduced. So I'm really pleased we made that decision not to make any rash decisions in that period of
Mm.
time. Then it was just figuring a way through it, Dan, right? It was you know, it taught you a lot about yourself and where your values lied, for sure. So, checking in with team members, you know, trying to ensure there's cash flow in the business to get you through this, negotiating with landlords on rents.
Mm.
We had zero income for about effectively 9 months across that period of time. So yeah, it taught me a lot about myself as a person. I look back at photos of me back then. Honestly, I looked about 60. It was a tough time. And you took as a leader, you take all the weight on your shoulders because you've got your team to worry about, you've got your business to worry about, you've got your landlords to worry about. Everyone at that time really didn't know. So, it was a case of working our way through it. But as I say, we're all in the same storm. Like everyone had
Mm.
the same issues. And it taught me a lot about myself and how I culturally work, for sure.
Do you think that accelerate? I mean, obviously, I'll talk about tech in the future in the moment, but do you think that that accelerated the use of technology and in the industry? And do you think that was like a bit of a watershed in that respect?
Absolutely did. And do you know what it taught us? We built, the early days of COVID, we're like, right, we need to engage our fan base, our membership base. So we went to Instagram for live classes, and I'd be pulling my hair out because I'd be speaking to Hannah, our group fitness director, going, Hannah, George has got a bin in his background. It looks awful. That's not the
Mhm.
brand we're trying to create here. And actually, it was a tough time during that period. But we wanted to engage our members and our community. We then built an online platform within 8 weeks, start to finish, an online platform, eight
Yeah.
weeks, video content. And we would never have done that. We would never have done that if the pandemic hadn't come. And, went on to be, I think, top 10 in the Times, the top 10 apps of 2020, whatever year it
Yeah.
was. It did, yeah. And, you built it in 8 weeks. So that sped things up for sure. And then coming back from COVID, it was a case of like, are people coming back to the offices? Are they not? And actually, they weren't. They were coming back in maybe 2 days a week at the time.
Mm.
So having this sort of hybrid model really helped us because we could talk people around the club and say, look, don't worry, if you're only at home, 2-3 days a week or in the gym 2-3 days a week, here's this. You can train with Firaz at home as well because he's in the club and he's online as well. So you can get your
Mm.
workout done online as well. So it really helped us through that period, but showed you what you could do. If the push comes to the shove, you could create something very, very quickly as well.
Interesting. So, I mean, you mentioned there about culture and team, and what has been the kind of the what do you think is the key to creating a successful team, keeping them motivated, and how flexible do you think you have to be, and how has it been different in the different businesses that you've been in? Do you think the same principles apply as did in LA Fitness to Gymbox to now, or do you think you need to take a slightly different approach depending on the brand, I guess, that you're working within?
Yeah, I think LA Fitness was different because it was 88 sites. So at 88 sites, it's much more difficult to create that culture, and you have to really rely on your regional managers and your GMs to create that there. Although they did a great job of it. I look back now and I can still remember the acronyms for, success or whatever we put out at the time. I still
Mm.
remember them because they were kind of really driven into you. Gymbox was very different. Gymbox, I was there at site 3, and the culture there was driven initially by, Richard, David, myself, because we were in the clubs every single day. So we didn't need a vision, a mission, and values really, because we were there living and breathing it.
Mhm.
It wasn't until about 2018, 19, we really put in the mission, vision, values, because as we were growing to 250 staff, 250 personal trainers and 400 instructors, we realized that we couldn't be in every single day in those
No.
clubs. So we created the vision, the mission, and the values. And it wasn't created by us either. So we got the teams, anyone who wanted to come along came along. So anyone from the cleaning team through to GMs, and put them in a room with a copywriter, and they came up with the vision, mission, values. Okay.
Okay.
Which was a great way of doing it, and they nailed it as well. Nothing changed from it. It was absolutely brilliant. And then from there, we decided, look, okay, if we really, really want to ensure culture is driven in our business, we need to make sure that people get off to a good, onboarding. So every single week, every Wednesday, 10 to 10:30, we only onboarded on Wednesdays, and I did the initial half an hour, which was mission, vision, values for the business with all new starters. So we carried that on once we got into that into that process. But before that, probably, Dan, it came from recruitment. Our recruitment
Mm.
policy was very, very simple. We would recruit people that were likable, enthusiastic, confident, not arrogant, and hungry. And if we could go for a beer with them for an hour, and we wouldn't be bored of them, they wouldn't be bored of us, they were probably a good fit. And that was our recruitment policy. And we were real sticklers for it, though. So if we were to go into the clubs in the later years, I didn't do every second interview in the later years,
Yeah.
and someone wasn't right, we recognised it very, very quickly,
Mm.
and they'd improve or move on. So we were very, very hot on that recruitment process to make sure we got the right people on board in the first instance. And I've taken the same thing into Fitness First, if I'm being honest. So when I came on board in Fitness First 6-7 months ago, mission, vision, values, culture. I'm now doing the first day onboarding for clubs now, albeit on teams now, because obviously we're national, so it's not as easy to see
Yeah.
face to face. But we're instilling that culture there of certainly people first, from that perspective.
So how do you kind of foster this kind of environment that is both, fun to be in, but also performance and well-being driven? And when you talked about obviously Gymbox going from 3 to multiple sites and the different problems that face when you grow, how do you feel that, what are the common mistakes do you think that people make within the industry, and how do you see the best way of overcoming those as you go from effectively a very founder driven business to one that becomes more corporate and difficult to manage, I guess?
Yeah, look, I think you've got to have a clear vision, mission, values, right? That's really important to me. Give something to buy into. But then it can't just live on the screen in clubs. It has to be lived and breathed. So that's the first thing I'd say from that perspective. The second thing is recruitment. Many businesses say they're people first, but really they're not, if I'm being honest. And culture's become a bit of a buzzword. And I say to my teams, culture is every single interaction you have with somebody every single day. Okay, how you interact, how you act, that's your culture. Now, there's more to it than that, of course. But if you set that as a bit of a mindset for your teams, when they interact with their teams, interact with members, interact with prospects, they've always got culture in mind, because they know that everything they do will affect that. So it's instilling that alongside the vision, mission, values to start with. And then, having a clear strategy, right? And communicating that strategy. So I came in with a clear vision and strategy of what I thought this business needed to go in the direction of. It's then having the ability to influence the right people. And as you go through the journey, just sense checking yourself. We do strategy days every 6 months, and we sense check where we are, where we're going, and where we want to go, and is it still the right track? So it's bringing people on that journey from start to finish, including club teams. Really important to include club teams. We meet the member experience managers every quarter, sales managers, fitness managers every quarter, GMs every quarter, and we'll go through this vision, this mission, this values and strategy, because it's really important that everyone's on the same bus, as I call it.
Yeah, I think that's solid advice. I mean, for somebody looking to come into the fitness industry now, they're starting off where you did on the gym floor, but they've got aspirations to become CEO or the owner of their own club, what advice would you give them, and what kind of insight do you think, from your wealth of experience, is the key to making that transition from gym floor to boardroom, I guess?
Yeah. Do you know what? I've been asked this before, and I'd love to give you like a really educational answer, but reality is, Dan, reality is, I've just worked really hard, and
Yeah.
for any business I've worked for, I genuinely have lived and breathed the values, right? So, for example, LA Fitness, they talked about bleeding purple. You got purple blood because you do get on board with the brand, you get on board with the mission, the vision, the values, and you deliver
Mm.
results. Nothing gets you promoted more than delivering results. Okay,
Mm.
so and along the way, if you're a good person, you're nice to people, and you treat people well, then that helps, right? So I think there's no magic wand to this.
Mm.
As I teach my kids, if you go into work, be positive. I've always said, Gymbox had a value, which was don't be a dick, right? And that was all about, we've all worked with that one person in a business that you go in and gives you negative energy. Now, we
Mm.
didn't want that in a business, so therefore we'd call that out. So, my view is the opposite to that. Go in, have a really positive impact on your business, on your team for the day. Work hard, deliver results, and you'll get recognition, progression pretty quickly. And that happened to me
Mm.
from fitness instructor, PT, fitness manager, studio coordinator, deputy manager, GM, all the way through the career. If I wasn't delivering results, I wouldn't have got promoted. So
Yeah.
I think that's the thing for me. Work hard at it, and if you're not passionate about it, don't do it. If you're not passionate about it, you won't go from PT to CEO. Okay, so find something that you're passionate about, and if that's not fitness, fine, but find something you're passionate about, and it'll make it a hell of a lot easier for you to get there as well.
Absolutely. And then in terms of technology, obviously AI can't like turn on the TV or whatever without hearing about it. Where do you see that fitting in the fitness industry? And or is it already there? And is it something we should be fearful of, or something we should be embracing, or a bit of both?
I'm not fearful of it. I think we embrace it. I mean, look, I can talk about fitness first here because obviously we're doing a big push amount on BioAge. So, across the last 6 months, we've focused on a number of areas. One of those would be AI and personalization. So, we're now promoting, rather than these 3-day trials to gyms, we're promoting come and get your BioAge. We'll put you through a 20, 30-minute assessment. We'll look at your metabolic score, flexibility, strength, cardio, give you an overall BioAge. So it's not about the age you are, it's about the age your body is. And, off the back of that, you're generating an AI program based upon your goals about around the data, and around your current level of ability. So if you're a complete beginner or the gym daunted, as we call it, you'll get a certain type of program. And if you are, an athlete, you'll get a different type of program. So, we're going heavy on that at the moment, and it's proving to generate some really good results, both from acquisition and retention at the moment as well. So that's where you lean into it, absolutely for sure. I think there's definitely a mix of the human and AI element though, because without our teams in clubs delivering these sessions, they wouldn't happen, right? So
Mm.
it's important to have that kind of mix, a bit of a hybrid for us from an AI perspective. So I'm definitely one to embrace it. By the way, not only in those elements, but think about your back end business, CRMs, member journeys, all of these things can be enhanced using AI for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So I know you need to wrap up, so I thought I'd ask a few kind of fun questions. Well, fun in my opinion, maybe not so fun for you. So what is something that you can share that people don't know about you? So maybe a passion or something like that. And then if you could work out with anybody in the world, who would it be and where would it be? And also, if you
Oh,
could have a superpower, what would that one be?
my superpower would be invisibility.
Yeah,
Um, because I could just go about my life and I could learn as I went, but actually no one could see me and see what I'm doing, and that would be great. So I think that would be my
yeah,
my superpower. I could hear and see what's going on.
yeah.
The If I could work out with somebody, who would it be? Um, God, good question, Dan. I never thought of that once before. I tell you what, I'll link it back to what I said when I was younger. I used to have this obsession when I was younger of, you kind of TV personalities, film stars, everyone else. And someone asked me once, what would be your perfect night out? And I
Yeah.
said, I love a perfect night out, but going out with Ant and Deck, right? So Ant and Deck, there we go, night out with Ant and Deck. So let's do a workout of Ant and Deck as well. That'd be good fun, I think, along the way. And what was the other one?
So who could you train with? So be with Ant and Deck, you reckon?
Well, off the top of my head, that's who I'd go for a beer with back in the day. I was asked that question many, many years ago, So Ant and Deck would be the workout.
Okay, fair enough. And then favorite meal, cheat meal.
Would have to be an Indian.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Excellent. And then just one final bit of advice for for somebody who wants to kind of excel in anything. I mean, you've mentioned it's just it seems to be and I would agree, it's about that hard work and dedication. Is there anything else that you think is like a not necessarily a secret ingredient, but something that people overlook?
No, honestly, for me, find something you think you're passionate about, and then go all in on it, and work hard, and don't stress about time either. I mean, I look at it now and go, probably, one of the things I would have done more in my career was stress less. An element of stress is good because it keeps you on it, but I would have
Yeah.
stressed less, and I was always very career driven. So in my 20s, early 20s, so I think probably my advice, as I give to my kids now is, you know, pick something you think you'll enjoy, you'll be
Yeah.
passionate about, go for it. And if it doesn't work, you don't want to do that. And if something else comes along, great, move directions, no problems. But whatever you do go into, um, go all in on it. Work your hardest at it, and the results will come.
Make it happen.
Make it happen. Absolutely.
Mark, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And yeah, hopefully we can have a follow up and learn a bit more about how this journey at Fitness First has gone and where it's led you, particularly on the AI side of things as well.
Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it.